We like to believe that history announces itself with a trumpet blast, a deafening noise that divides the before from the after. We expect the sky to darken or the ground to shake, but that is the great American illusion. We have lived in a bubble of stability for so long that we have forgotten how fragile the membrane of peace actually is. The truth is, the end of the world as we know it doesn't begin with a bang. It begins with a notification. It starts at exactly 06:17 a.m. Eastern Time. The sun is just beginning to crest over the Atlantic. In kitchens from Boston to Richmond, coffee machines are finishing their brew cycles. The morning paper is on the driveway. The markets haven't opened yet, and flights are boarding with the mundane rhythm of a Tuesday. To the naked eye, this is the definition of peace. But in the invisible spectrum, the digital nervous system that now runs our reality, the world has already ended. While you are reaching for the creamer, a flash in Eastern Europe triggers a satellite sensor. Data packets stream through fiber optic cables on the ocean floor. Within minutes, a report appears online, a confirmed missile launch. It is something no one wants to believe, so for the first few minutes, we don't. We stare at the screen, waiting for the correction. We wait for the pundits to tell us it's a drill, a mistake, a glitch. This is the reality of modern warfare. It arrives silently. There are no immediate explosions in your neighborhood. There is no enemy paratrooper landing on the front lawn. Instead, there is just a vibrating phone on a nightstand. A handful of early risers scroll through headlines that shift from unverified rumors to NATO response confirmed. For the average American man, someone who remembers the duck and cover drills of the Cold War, or the solemn broadcasts of the 20th century, this moment brings a chilling familiarity, but it also brings a strange dissonance. The birds are still singing, the traffic is still moving, the illusion of normalcy holds its shape for just a few moments longer. But make no mistake, at 6:17 a.m., the peace you thought you woke up to is already a ghost. The shockwave isn't physical yet. It isn't breaking windows, but it is racing toward your front door, carried by the terrifying speed of information. The American century of untouchable security has just evaporated, not with fire, but with a quiet, irreversible realization. It's finally happening. By 6:45 a.m., the silence of the morning is shattered, not by air raid sirens, but by a synchronized digital scream. An emergency alert lights up every phone on the East Coast. The message is blunt, capitalized, and terrifyingly vague. National defense condition elevated. Remain indoors. For those of you who remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, you remember a different kind of fear. You remember gathering around a radio or a single television set, waiting for a trusted voice, a Cronkite or a Huntley, to tell you the truth. The information was scarce, but it was shared. We were all looking at the same picture. Today, we face the information paradox. We carry the sum of human knowledge in our pockets, yet in the first few hours of a modern global conflict, we know less than our grandfathers did in 1941. Information has become both our lifeline and our poison. Instead of clarity, the alert triggers a deluge of noise. By 8:08 a.m., America is awake and scrambling. But here is where the modern world fails us. The government's strategy is simple containment. Keep the public informed enough to stay compliant, but not terrified enough to panic. But they cannot control the speed of the lie. By 10:08 a.m., the vacuum of official news is filled by the chaos of the internet. False reports move faster than the truth ever could. On social media, trends begin to appear claiming missile impacts in Los Angeles or Houston. You watch amateur videos on your phone, grainy footage showing streaks of light in the sky. Are they real? Are they from a video game? Are they from a conflict 10 years ago? There is no way to verify. The distinction between rumor and reality dissolves instantly. News anchors, the people we used to look to for authority, are hesitating. They read statements that sound eerily like history repeating itself, urging calm while their own eyes betray deep fear. They are just as much in the dark as you are. This is the new fog of war. It isn't smoke on a battlefield. It is data overload in your living room. The fear of losing connection feels as real as the fear of the attack itself. You desperately refresh the page, looking for certainty, but all you find is speculation. By mid-morning, the rhythm of daily life fractures. We realize that the battlefield has not yet arrived at our borders, but its shadow has already covered every screen. We are drowning in data, yet starving for truth. And as the morning wears on, one undeniable fact becomes clear. In a modern war, the first casualties are not cities or soldiers, but certainty itself. If information is the nervous system of our nation, logistics is its blood. And for the last 40 years, we have optimized that blood flow for one thing: efficiency. We call it just-in-time delivery. It made everything cheaper, faster, and leaner. But in doing so, we stripped away the resilience. We removed the fat that keeps a nation alive during a winter. By mid-morning, barely 4 hours after the first alert, the rhythm of daily life fractures. We witness how quickly a system built on efficiency collapses under the weight of panic. In major hubs like Chicago, Atlanta, and Dallas, the reaction is instantaneous. People pour into supermarkets, driven by a collective instinct that overrides decades of civilized conditioning. The aisles fill faster than any storm warning ever triggered. You know the drill for a blizzard: milk, bread, eggs. But this is different. This is a siege mentality. Shelves, once stocked with bottled water, canned food, and batteries, vanish within a single hour. The modern grocery store is not a warehouse. It is a temporary display case for a supply chain that requires constant motion. When the buying speed outpaces the trucks, the illusion of abundance evaporates. The collapse extends to our mobility. At gas stations, queues stretch around the block. The sound of engines idling mixes with short bursts of argument. These are small flashes of fear from people who, just hours ago, were worried about being late for a meeting. Now they are fighting for the last 10 gallons of unleaded, realizing that without fuel, their escape plans are nothing more than heavy metal sculptures sitting in a driveway. By noon, the institutional pillars begin to buckle. The Department of Education issues a statement closing schools nationwide, a precautionary suspension. This triggers a second wave of movement. Parents flood the roads to pick up their children. Interstate highways clog instantly. This isn't an organized evacuation order. It is pure instinct. It is the primal drive to gather the tribe. But the infrastructure cannot handle the volume. Traffic stops. The roads become parking lots. In these 6 short hours, America experiences the first paradox of modern war. The battlefield hasn't physically arrived yet. There are no craters in the road, but the system is broken. We realize that our abundance was never permanent. It was a fragile agreement between millions of moving parts, and it only took 3 hours of uncertainty to bring it all to a grinding halt. For those of us who remember the world before the microchip, money was something you could hold. It had weight. It was a physical promise between you and the government. If the bank was closed, you still had the cash in your pocket. But over the last 30 years, we have willingly traded that physical security for convenience. We turned our labor, our savings, and our legacies into binary code, signals of light bouncing off satellites. We trusted the cloud to hold our wealth, but at 1:17 p.m., the cloud evaporates. The collapse doesn't begin with an explosion. It begins with a silence that hums in the air. For hours, officials had warned of cyber disruptions, a sterile term that few truly understood until the moment it arrived. It happens in an instant across the eastern seaboard. Millions of transactions simply stop. Imagine standing at a gas pump. You have swiped your card. You are watching the screen. And then, nothing. The debit card fails. You try again. You try a credit card. Nothing. Inside the station, the register freezes. The clerk looks up, confused. He can't sell you the gas because the system that validates the money no longer exists. This is the digital decoupling. It is the terrifying realization that without the network, your money is just ghost money. It is a number on a server that you can no longer reach. Within minutes, ATMs freeze. Mid-transaction, lines form not just for gas, but for cash, the one thing almost no one carries enough of anymore. But the machines are dead. Entire regions lose access to online banking. You try to log into your brokerage account on your phone to check your portfolio, but the app won't load. The internet slows, stutters, and then dies. In New York, the financial heart of the world stops beating. It doesn't suffer a heart attack. It simply flatlines. Trading on Wall Street halts completely after the third circuit breaker trips. But this isn't like 1929 or 2008. The markets don't crash. They simply cease to function. There is no panic selling because you can't sell. Your assets are frozen in time, locked behind a digital wall that no one has the key to. This blackout spreads like an invisible contagion. In the cities, digital payment systems fail completely, leaving stores unable to sell what little food remains on the shelves. It doesn't matter if you have a credit limit of $50,000. If the terminal can't talk to the bank, you are effectively penniless. In rural areas, the isolation is even more profound. Cell towers drop one by one, cutting off communities entirely. The modern farmer, the small business owner, people who rely on connectivity to move goods are suddenly islands. At home, millions of Americans find themselves standing in front of powerless routers, staring at screens that no longer load. We act out a tragic ritual, toggling the Wi-Fi off and on, restarting the modem, as if this is a Comcast outage. But deep down, a cold realization sets in. The credit cards are useless. The banking apps are gone. The system hasn't just paused, it has been decapitated. For the first time in decades, the United States feels alone, not as a nation, but as millions of individuals cut off from the systems they trusted. And this creates a new, primal fear. It's not the fear of a missile strike. It's the fear of a man who realizes he has spent a lifetime building wealth that has vanished into the ether. By mid-afternoon, the truth is undeniable. In a modern war, your net worth is only as real as the electricity that powers the server it sits on. And right now, the screen is black. By 6:01 p.m., the sun sinks behind a horizon that, for the first time in generations, no one is really watching. We are used to the night being pushed back by the artificial dawn of our cities. We are used to street lights, neon signs, and the glow of skyscrapers. But tonight, America watches the night arrive without the glow of its civilization. The power outages, which started as regional flickers, now blanket the entire East Coast. The grid hasn't just tripped, it has gone dormant. And as the darkness settles, the silence becomes heavy. It is a physical weight. In the major cities, the only movement comes from police cruisers rolling through empty downtown streets. Their loudspeakers echo off the glass canyons of silent skyscrapers. Return home, stay indoors, remain calm. But in the darkness, those words sound hollow. Even to the officers repeating them, they are enforcing order in a world that has lost its structure. It is here, in the dark, that we see the return of analog. For the last 20 years, we have been told that the future is digital, that the future is smart. But when the screens go black, the smart world dies and the old world wakes up. In basements and living rooms, fathers and grandfathers are rummaging through drawers, bypassing the dead iPads to find the things they haven't touched in years: the battery packs, the flashlights, and most importantly, the radios. The digital spectrum is dead, but the radio waves are still there. Families cluster around these devices, listening to the one sound that never lies: static. Through the hiss, voices emerge. They are fractured and distant, often repeating pre-recorded updates from hours ago. Federal authorities are responding. Boil water. It is a mantra designed to hold off panic, though few believe it anymore. This is the moment where the hobbyists, the amateur radio operators, the hams that the modern world dismissed as obsolete, become the most important people in the country. While the fiber optic lines lie dormant, these operators are bouncing signals off the ionosphere, stitching together a fragile web of communication across states. They are the only ones who know what is happening. They are the new news anchors. But for the rest of the population, the darkness breeds something primal. Without the internet to verify facts, the imagination takes over. Fear changes shape. It is no longer the fear of a specific missile strike. It is the fear of the unknown. By 8:30 p.m., rumors start to fill the vacuum. Someone claims they heard explosions offshore. Another claims there are naval clashes in the Atlantic. Is it true? Is it hysteria? Without the internet, there is no Snopes. There is no fact check. There is only the word of a neighbor whispered across a fence. And yet, inside the homes, something profound happens. The distraction economy has collapsed. There is no TV to watch, no feed to scroll. In living rooms across the country, Americans rediscover rituals that had been edited out of modern life. They write handwritten notes. They share meals by candlelight. They whisper prayers. The silence between heartbeats becomes audible. We see trust fracturing along invisible lines, some neighbors barring their doors, hoarding what they have. But we also see the resilience of the old guard, neighbors sharing generators, communities talking in person, face to face, the way people used to. By 10 p.m., the blackout has spread coast to coast. The skies are quiet, except for the occasional streak of light. Satellites moving in the void, or perhaps something else. The United States, for the first time in modern history, falls asleep disconnected from itself. The first day of World War III ends, not with a nuclear firestorm, but with silence. The war has not yet reached every home physically, but its shadow is now sitting in every living room. We went to bed in the 21st century, but tonight we are sleeping in the dark, waiting for a dawn that will look very different from the one we left behind. When the sun rises on the second day, it brings no sense of relief. It brings only the harsh, unvarnished clarity of what has actually happened. The morning feels heavy, muted. The frantic energy of yesterday's panic is gone, replaced by a stillness that this country hasn't felt in a century. The landscape has changed overnight. The streets, once the arteries of commerce, are now lined with stalled cars, abandoned mid-journey by drivers who realize too late that a vehicle without fuel is just a cage. Gas stations stand empty, their digital price signs dark, frozen in time. For the first time in decades, silence defines the American landscape. There are no jet engines cutting across the sky. There is no commercial hum from open storefronts. There is only the rhythmic echo of footsteps and the distant rhythmic crackle of shortwave radios. Overnight, the government issued its first formal address via emergency frequencies. It wasn't a press conference with flashbulbs. It was a voice most Americans didn't recognize, speaking through the static. The message was mechanical, short, and terrifyingly vague. The nation remains intact. Federal continuity is in effect. Shelter in place. They promise assistance will arrive. But looking out at the empty streets, you realize the truth that the broadcast is trying to hide. They don't know when, and they don't know how. This is the moment the paradigm shifts. In homes and shelters, the metric of success changes instantly. Yesterday, you cared about your credit score and your stock portfolio. Today, those numbers mean nothing. People begin counting what they actually have left. Food, water, fuel, grocery chains, cut off from the complex logistics networks that kept them alive, remain shuttered. The credit cards in your wallet are now just colored plastic. What once seemed like endless abundance, power, connection, supplies, has suddenly become finite, measured strictly in hours and calories. And yet, beneath the fear, a strange calm begins to take hold. The superficial distractions are gone. Neighbors who barely spoke for years now meet at the fence lines, sharing information and meals by candlelight. Communities that spent the last decade arguing over politics and screens are forced to rediscover what it means to simply belong to a place. The grid is down, the screen is dark, but the people are waking up. We are realizing that while the systems we built were fragile, the human spirit that built them is not. We have entered the new dawn where survival isn't about what you own in the cloud, but who you can trust on your block. History rarely announces its turning points with fanfare. They arrive quietly, hidden in moments of confusion and in the choices made by ordinary people trying to hold on to the familiar. This morning, the morning after the world changed, is one of those turning points. By noon, the landscape of America has transformed. Makeshift aid centers begin forming in schools, churches, and parking lots. There is no federal directive coordinating this. It is spontaneous. It is the natural immune response of a community realizing it is on its own. Amateur radio operators, huddled over equipment in garages, report intermittent transmissions from overseas, fragments suggesting the conflict is still expanding. The war has entered its second day, but for most Americans, the front line remains invisible. It is not measured in miles gained or lost, but in the depth of uncertainty that now surrounds every decision. In the span of just 24 hours, a nation built on the promise of endless abundance has learned exactly how fragile that abundance truly is. We built a civilization on just-in-time delivery, on digital banking, and on the assumption that the lights would always turn on. But the systems that defined our modern lives, the grid, the market, the screen, have vanished into the ether. They have left behind only the oldest human currencies: trust, courage, and the will to endure. We often wonder if we have the strength of the generations that came before us, if we could survive a depression, a world war, a winter without heat. Today, we are finding out the silence that covers the country is not an emptiness, it is a canvas. And so ends the first day of World War III. It does not end with the fall of cities or the crumbling of monuments. It ends with the awakening of a people forced to remember what survival truly means. The comfort is gone, the illusion is shattered, but in the quiet, we are finally awake.